Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody on planet Earth, wherever you may be. I'm a cleaning lady again today. I wanted to ask all of you a question. How would you cope if you were a member of the royal family? I see in the press this morning there's distinct alarm on the part of Sir John Major, amongst many others, about the upcoming Netflix show, The Crown, Season 5. I do know some people don't like talking about it, so they don't watch Netflix. Don't blame you, there's a lot of arty-farty nonsense on there. I do have to pay for Netflix because my family members watch various shows. There's kids' shows. They're like kids, they're grown up. My daughter, by the way, is nearly 22. I think a lot of you, she looks 12, she's like me. When I was that age, I looked about 12 till I was 29. So she watches things like, I don't know, Lucifer. They watch, I can't remember the name of it. It's about some kids in America that treasure hunt and stuff like that. They watch shows like that, so I do pay for it for them. I resent paying for it. I think it's extremely expensive. It's a lot more expensive than it was when I first signed up to it. Anyway, that's beside the point. I have come under some criticism from some commenters that I am promoting and advertising The Crown. Really, I don't think Netflix are relying on my YouTube channel to promote The Crown. I think they can manage to do that all by themselves. And me not talking about it is not going to make it go away or to change the outcome of any criticisms. But I see Sir John Major is particularly upset as he's being depicted in it. He says he's never cooperated with it. They've never contacted him. And the storylines, I don't know if he's had some sort of premiere. It sounds like they've shown him a premiere because I haven't seen it. It doesn't come out till November. But he's saying that the storylines are ludicrous and way offbeat. So, and I mean, I would imagine this is the same for lots of people who are in the public eye or famous, that it can all just turn into absolute nonsense and fantasy. And again, I do want to drive home that The Crown is fictitious. Whether they put a disclaimer on or not, I know it's fictitious. I'm sure most of you guys know it's fictitious. Equally, I guess there's a lot of people who think it's fact and it's real, unfortunately. And hopefully they will get to see this and realise that it is fictitious. It's just an idea, it's a dramatisation. And it's not the first and it won't be the last. When I was a child, there were lots and lots of dramatisations and adaptations about the abdication and Wallis Simpson. I mean, lots. And it seemed like there was a new one on the telly every week. They were positively obsessed, and I'm talking the 1970s, when all that went down in the 1930s. So these things go on for quite a while. And how accurate any of those are is anybody's guess. If anybody really, I think, wants to get to the bottom of the abdication era, I would highly recommend Lady C's book, The Queen Mother, A Life Well Lived, or something like that. It is really interesting, and I do believe that's quite an accurate, it is accurate. Obviously Lady C wasn't alive or there at the time, but I've got to get this right, her ex-mother-in-law, Margaret, Duchess of Argyll, she and Lady C were really close, and so she got a lot of from the horse's mouth, really, from Margaret, who told her. And it is a fascinating read. If only somebody would do an adaptation on Lady C's book. But it's so different to what I was brought up to believe and understand, or what my parents believed at the time from the limited media they had in those days. So how would you guys cope? Would you be like Queen Elizabeth II? Never explain, never complain, ignore it all, which I think is incredibly difficult? Or would you go about getting your side across, not in the way that it's been done on Oprah recently, but maybe by supporting certain causes, doing things a certain way? Would you find it uncomfortable? Of course, there's two categories of members of the royal family, those that are born into it and those that marry into it. I don't know which is worse, actually. I think that's the fascination. For me, certainly, they are human beings. They always have been. So it's always made me curious how they cope as human beings, living under that spotlight, level of criticism, often very unfair criticism, being levelled their way. And I've been looking up this morning Edward VII because I remember my parents going on and on and on about him being cited in a divorce case and how scandalous it was at the time. Now, he had a reputation, whether true or not, for being a philanderer. Lily Langtry was one of his supposed allegedly very, very famous mistresses. And another one was Lady Harriet Mordaunt. And when he was the Prince of Wales, he was cited in her divorce to Sir Charles Mordaunt, I think he was called. And he was actually called to the stand and examined by her counsel for several minutes, which is extraordinary. Prince of Wales on the stand under such circumstances. So Prince Charles and Princess Diana becoming divorced, it's not the first time that there's been shocks. They're human beings. They're fallible. They're not perfect. What happened with Edward VII was a lot more shocking, especially at the time. So I'd love to know what you think. I mean, I think that it's just unrealistic to say, I'm going to unsubscribe from Netflix. Everybody is not going to do that. People are going to watch it. I am going to watch it. I want to see what they do. The first 2 seasons, I was absolutely gripped. I just thought it was lovely. The way they'd done the production was lovely. Whether it was accurate or not, Lady C says totally inaccurate. But it captured my imagination, that's for sure. Seasons 3 and 4... See, seasons 1 and 2 were before I was born. So it just captured the essence of the era. Seasons 3 and 4 were when I was alive, and I remember the Queen sort of looking like that. I always thought Olivia Colman was very bad casting because she's so well known in her own right. I think Claire Foy did very well because she was unknown and sort of thrown in at the deep end, and I think they would have done better to do something like that. They obviously, in seasons 5 and 6, are very much going to come into eras where I was an adult and I very much remember events. Now, in the last season, they even fucked up the engagement interview with Diana and Charles. I mean, it's just everybody's seen it so many times. Why did they change the wording? Why did they make it more hammy, doughy-eyed? That was ludicrous the way they did it. Anybody can look up that interview, the real thing, on YouTube. So I never understand why they changed that. And that was as soon as I saw that, I said to Graham, they're losing me, they're really losing me. Because what I want is, I do like drama. I don't just watch factual programmes. I love drama. I love fictitious stories, fictitious characters. Good God, you have to have wine as well as food and water. We all have to have a bit of fun and entertainment. But there's also the aspect of the importance of historical accuracy. Now, I believe that even if Netflix twist it beyond recognition, that will not be the end of the story, because the monarchy continues. Let's say even if tomorrow Britain, very unlikely, voted to get rid of the monarchy and be a republic instead, go away mosquito, in the future there will be further adaptations and further revelations and further things that will come out, which will then make what Netflix are saying ludicrous. An example is, years ago there was a film called Raising the Titanic in one piece. Well, the witnesses at the time said it broke in half, and the fact is it broke in half. So that film now, Raising the Titanic, is ludicrous, isn't it? So it's most likely going to be that way. Anyway, on a slightly different topic, but similar, because Edward VII was a pretty interesting guy. He's one of my favourite monarchs, and Queen Alexandra. Queen Alexandra, the then Princess of Wales, chose to ignore it all, whether it was true or not. She just chose to ignore it. And I do believe she said she was deaf and she couldn't hear. And I've often wondered if she really was hard of hearing, or did she just have selective hearing? because she didn't want to hear about her husband's shenanigans or give it any oxygen. But I remember a television dramatisation, which is not really based on fact at all, called The Duchess of Duke Street. It was on in the 1970s. It's spectacular. So if anybody's having a boring afternoon or evening or morning, wherever you may be, or if you're lonely or you want something that's, it's a dramatisation. King Edward VII does feature a little bit in it. It's set in, obviously, Edwardian times, and I think it goes up to about 1925. They're 30-minute episodes, and some marvellous YouTuber, bless them, has put them all on YouTube. So I'll put the link to part 1, and then hopefully you'll be able to find the other episodes from that if you're looking for something to watch. I know Karen's searching for something to watch. I've said to her that YouTube's full of things to watch. So if she sees this, why don't you watch that? Because I can't afford to get you any more books, Karen. I can't believe how fast you read. Good God, I'd take the woman a book. She's read it by the next day. She'll be able to open her own library by the time she comes out of hospital. So thoughts, opinions. Firstly, how would you cope being a member of the royal family? And secondly, thoughts about The Crown. I mean, it hasn't even come out yet. So maybe people are getting a bit worked up before having seen it. Sir John Major, I think, has seen at least one episode and is very much not impressed because he was there at the time. He's being depicted in it and he says that never happened. And his nickname was Honest John. So for all his other faults, I'd be inclined to believe Sir John. Anyway, hope you're all having a fabulous day. Thoughts and opinions.